You know that meme where like Thanos leans forward out of the shadows as he starts speaking to you? That's me now. We need to talk about War Thunder. We need to talk about the Pantsir problem in War Thunder. It's literally living proof that Russian bias exists in this game. Like, I know Russian bias has always been a meme, and I was always like, yeah, there's not really Russian bias. Stalinanium wood, which is magical wood that is very resistant and also puts out fires. Yeah, didn't really exist, but whatever. And then people pointed specific things saying Russian bias here. T-34 is super resilient in War Thunder. I mean, you practically put rounds into the diesel tanks and nothing happens. I know diesel doesn't explode when you put a match to it, but fucking hell, those T-34 fuel tanks are basically filled up with sand with the way they absorb shots. And I turned a blind eye to that. But the Pantsir is a different breed of BS. So to give you context, every nation at top tier has a surface-to-air missile system. America's got the XM-957, which has around 8 kilometer reach with its missiles. They've also got the XM-1069, which has 10 kilometers of reach. Germany has the Flakrad, which has around 8 to 10 kilometers of reach. Britain has the Stormer, which kind of has these Starstreak missiles, which are amazing in theory, but are absolutely garbage in War Thunder because the devs didn't bother to program them correctly, and they can only reach out to around 7k. ADATs, so Britain also has the ADATs that has around 10k reach. Japan at top tier doesn't actually have a top tier surface-to-air missile system. They just have the Type 93, which is a go-kart with a stinger strapped to the top of it. That's around 5 kilometer of range if you're lucky. China has the Tor, which is one of the better surface-to-air missile systems, and that has around 12 kilometers of range. Italy has the Automatic, which just completely throws the idea of surface-to-air missiles out of the game, and it's pretty good, very competitive, around 6 to 10 kilometers reach depending on the skill of the user. It's just firing shells, but with enough skill those shells can go like 10 kilometers range. France has the Roland 1 with 8 kilometer reach, and the ITO 90M with 12 kilometers of reach, very respectable. Sweden has the AS RADR with 9 kilometers range, and the ITO 90 with 12 kilometers reach. So you've sort of gotten the idea of what's going on so far. Like, the best AAs that every nation have reach around 10 to 12 kilometers. And I'm just talking about range, I'm not talking about radar yet. And then the Soviets have the Pantsir, which has 20 kilometers reach. And you might ask, okay, it can do 20k. But for 20k, it's got to have a trade-off, right? It's like twice as good as every other country's AA. It's got something in exchange for that. The missiles are probably slower, or when they get near their target, they don't explode as well. The proximity fuse is smaller, it needs to be more accurate. Maybe the missiles are kind of bad at adjusting for lead, or... No, it doesn't have any downsides. The missile is actually, like, statistically better than every other missile of its type. It has a higher velocity from its launch, to even at 10 kilometers, it will still have a higher velocity than every other nation's missile. And when the missile gets to its target, it still booms and has the same level of destruction as every other country's missile. But except this one can reach out 20k. And I agree that CAS is annoying in War Thunder, and ground players need a way to deal with it. But sort of every country has this artificial dome around the battlefield where, as a person that plays planes in ground RB, I'm like, okay, 10 kilometers around the combat zone is a no-no zone. But if I'm up against a Soviet team, I gotta extend that range to 20k, only because of this unit. Just straight up, that unit. If the Soviets are on my team, that means that I can then approach within the combat zone within 10 kilometers and have immunity. And now to bring up the other point that I completely avoided, radar. This vehicle's radar is just a billion times better than every other country's radar. It can look up 70 degrees, whereas every other country is looking up around like 60, 50, 40 degrees at best. I think it has around 40 kilometer horizontal. It's just got a better radar, like twice as good as every other country's radar, which means from the moment you spawn in, you are on their radar screen. So they know you exist, so the only strategy for flying a plane in top tier ground is to just hit the deck. you're always going to be flying on the deck, which kind of is a bit dull. And I don't mean that for the sake of like, it's like in real life, you got to hit the deck, but it's only because of this unit. I got to change my entire playstyle. If the Soviets are on my team, I can fly high up. I can focus on what jets do, which is fly at high altitude, launching long-range ordnance, or just generally staying 10 kilometers away from the combat zone and dealing with planes. But if I have this on the enemy team, I got to stay on the deck nice and low. And I didn't bring up, it also has guns as well. Very effective guns, but I didn't really want to bring that up. I was just focusing on the pure missiles. It is a very, very good AA with zero downsides that basically performs twice as good when it comes to the missiles, twice as good when it comes to the radar. And at first I thought I was just being salty, but when I looked into the details of how the missile works, nope, just straight up exists. So the Pantsir is proof of Russian bias in War Thunder. Literal proof. It can't be unproven. Its statistics are just twice as good as every other nation's anti-aircraft vehicle. But going back to the surface-to-air missile system, I know it's niche, not many people fly planes in ground RB. And I understand CAS is a cancer in ground RB, and I can agree with that. But the 10-kilometer dome of protection is something that I go by rule of thumb. Why is it the entire playstyle goes out of the window when one vehicle in the game comes in? Maybe my argument will completely be demolished if America gets an AA that can reach out to around 20k. And then at that point, I just got to accept I changed my playstyle. But it's the Pantsir is just the one and only thing in the game which makes me change my entire playstyle depending if it's on my team or on the enemy team. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed my TED talk about why War Thunder Russian bias Pantsir, and I'll see you in the next one.